Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look at the biggest difference there is between a meat eater, a plant eater, and an omnivore. And I want to use this video, or I want you guys to use this video, whenever a meat eater comes up and throws another excuse at you that they think is a good excuse why we should eat animals. And I'm sure many of you have read Buddha and his remarks about this. And to paraphrase Buddha, in the future, people under the influence of the taste of meat will come up with many sophisticated arguments to defend meat eating. Now I've got one simple argument against all of their arguments, and it's the only one we should ever use. It's the number one reason why all their other reasons are bullshit. And it's the number one difference between a meat eater and a plant eater and an omnivore. Remember, there are about a dozen anatomical characteristics that clearly indicate what type of food a species is supposed to eat. We have a species-specific diet. There's no question at all. Again, there's about a dozen anatomical characteristics, and every one of them clearly indicate what we're supposed to eat or what any other animal is supposed to eat. But if we just take one of them, the most important one, and give all the rest of them to them, said, okay, you can have the other ones, we will admit that those aren't good excuses, but I got one that is, and you can't deny this one. Has to do with the length of our intestines. If we look at all the animal eaters, they have short intestines, relatively speaking, about 3 times the length of their torso, and all the plant eaters have long intestines, relatively speaking, about 10 times the length of their torso, approximately. And then we have omnivores. And guess what? Omnivores also have short intestines. But wait a minute, John. We see the bears and the dogs, but humans, we're omnivores. No, we're not. We have anatomical limitations. Now, an animal with short intestines can get away with eating food that's going to go through too quickly and not get utilized as well. So they might have a deficiency if that's all they ate. But guess what? The animals that are eating this type of omnivorous diet usually do so to hibernate. So they're getting more than enough so they don't have any deficiencies. Sure, they might not be utilizing those blueberries as well as we could, but that's not the issue. The issue is whether or not long intestines can handle something that takes too long and end up with a toxicity. So at the most, if an omnivorous animal ate all plants, they might have some deficiencies, but all of the plant eaters that are eating the animals or any type of flesh foods will have toxicities. They'll have a serpent in their belly. And that's the key right there. So we're not omnivores. The true omnivore's dilemma would be for any species dumb enough to think they're an omnivore when they're not. They're clearly a plant eater. Plant eaters cannot become omnivores. Only carnivores can become omnivores. If you have long intestines, you have extreme anatomical limitations. And if you violate them, you'll have a serpent in your belly. It's going to pollute your blood, pollute your thoughts, change your whole complexion. And we know that. Herodotus, the father of history, reported that the grain-eating nations, now grains, they're not grainivores either, but no animals, these nations, every one of them surpassed all the meat-eating nations in every area except 2. Their warlike expressions and their obsession with sex. So meat does not do a body good. We're not designed to eat meat. It's clear. Humans, long intestines. Meat is only for short intestines. Meat, not long. Meat is not appropriate for intestines that are too long. It's going to cause too many problems. And again, if you have short intestines, you can get away with eating things that are going to go through too quickly. You're not going to utilize them as well, but you can get away with it in a way that it's not going to pollute you and create toxins and things inside you that don't belong there, especially if it's dead animal flesh. My God, why do you think these meat-eating nations were warlike? They had dead flesh in their bellies rotten, polluting their blood, polluting their brain. Now, the grain-eating nations are eating grain, so they're still making mistakes, but at least it's relative. In one case, we have nations that are making two main mistakes, and in the other case, we have nations that are making another two main mistakes. At least when we look back in Herodotus' time, there weren't any processed foods and chemicals back at that time. But there sure was cooking, that's the first mistake. Eating animals, the second mistake. And eating grains, the third mistake. We're not biologically adapted to eat grains. We're not biologically adapted to eat animals. Now, some people might get away with it more than others, but that doesn't make you impervious to all the other problems that come when we got a serpent in our belly. Not to mention you got to cook it to begin with. That's the key right there. That's why I insist that if we can correct the fall of mankind, the cooking of our food, that solves all the other problems. No more meat eating, no more grain eating, no more processing our foods, no more using chemicals, no more war, crime, violence, heart disease, cancer, diabetes. This planet can transform easily if we can understand the importance of not cooking our food. So most of us have people in our lives, don't we, that remind us over and over that they think we need to eat meat, and they're always looking for an excuse. Well, next time, just keep throwing that back at them. Don't let them scoff it off. Humans have long intestines. All plant eaters have long intestines. All meat eaters have short intestines. Therefore, humans are clearly plant eaters. It boggles my mind that we can be in such a state of denial that supposedly intelligent people who see all the other connections can't see that connection. Like Joseph McCullough, for example, pushing the animals. Why? Because he had a bad experience when he ate fruit. His triglyceride levels rose. So what? Cholesterol can rise too when you're eating fruit. How does that happen? Because your body's cleansing. It's not easy, my friends, to make sense out of all of this. When you have people who look like they know what they're talking about, they sure enough slam the medical profession. But then they turn around and say something ridiculous like fruit is bad and you got to eat animals. Carbohydrates are bad. There's only one way to make sense out of this. You have to have a brand new reference. You've got to do something you haven't done before. You got to climb that unexplored mountain. You got to rise above or raise above the ideas of the time. You got to go where few have gone, as Buddha would say. And when you can go where few have gone, I guarantee you're in for a treat.